Is that good?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
I will do that. Got you.
Welcome to another HouseCast. For you, this is very different, of course. Nemr,
Yes,
welcome.
Sir. Thank you for having me.
How do you pronounce your full name, just for
Oh,
the
God.
sake of everybody?
It's Nemr is perfect, Nemr in Arabic, and the last name's Abou Nassar.
Okay. Mikael is another one, you know.
Mikael Haver.
Yeah, but Michael's fine, so I'll just say.
Mikael is great. I can go with Mikael.
First time in Finland?
First time in Finland.
Enjoying Helsinki so far?
Incredible. One of my, I know we're supposed to keep it secret.
Yeah, well, it's a
terrible place. Don't come. Stay away. It's absolutely not gorgeous. The people are absolutely not the nicest.
No.
And crime everywhere. Just violence on the streets.
Rampant.
Rampant violence. Everywhere. Assaulted on a daily basis.
Right.
It's honestly one of the most beautiful places I've been to. The design, the aesthetic, the people. I mean, walking around the streets and everything, I'm like, I can see why games that come from here are that good.
The dark and melancholic.
Dark and melancholic, I get that as well. Yeah. But the efficiency of the games, you can tell, because like everywhere you go, people are growing up with just incredible design from the get-go. Also, the words are super huge.
There's
so I guess a lot complex stuff get broken down easily.
A lot of the words, yeah.
Yeah.
I do think that there's a culture that in the 80s we did get a little bit more, let's say, Western influences. The early PCs and Amigas and Commodores were a big proponent to bringing kids into the PC age, and that's where the demo scene was born. And the demo scene was something in the Nordics and in other European countries, Germany, where hobbyists just started making games on whatever hardware they had. Now, this is something that's been a bit different in the US. There was, of course,
a scene like that as well,
right? But it was less. It was more focused on certain areas and maybe never as hobby centric.
Okay.
Because here we used to have like conventions where people just come in and do their demos, right?
Really? And you'd exchange cartridges and
right,
stuff?
because there was no industry.
True.
So we kind of created the industry. HouseMarque is the two companies that were born into HouseMarque were Bloodhouse and Terramark, both 1993. And then 2 months before Remedy was started in 95, they fused into a single company, yeah. So we're technically 2 months older than Remedy, even with those two companies being there.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But the fact that both Remedy and HouseMarque come from this country.
And the demo scene specifically.
Says a lot about the country.
Yeah, and for us as well, it gives us a lot of kind of understanding of the tech centricity of it. Because it's always about what kind of cool stuff can we do, which is breaking the tech or like hacking the stuff. So it's always been about creating something visually never seen before, that kind of stuff.
So is that probably what bled into like when Returnal has its own particle system, stuff like that you guys use? And
there's a huge heritage in terms of having our own engines.
So it's a
having all that particle stuff that we have in general. So all the games we have in the past have kind of lend, systems that stem from that history and heritage.
That's wild. That makes so much sense now.
Yeah, and recently we've been adding stuff like narrative design and all these other things. But we'll get to that more later. Well,
yeah, I get ahead of myself.
how about yourself? You have a career in comedy now and gaming.
So I've been a stand-up comedian for well over 23 years now, and that's my career.
Yeah.
During COVID, that stopped because
for a little while.
Long enough for me to I had a Twitch channel going on, and I was like, this is a perfect opportunity to grow that because I'm stuck at home.
Yeah.
So I started streaming on Twitch again, but this time full time, and the channel did really, really well. And then there was a game coming out after we partnered and everything. And my channel, I'm a variety streamer. So for me as a stand-up comedian, I always say that streaming on Twitch, the video game is my stage.
Right.
And the best stage to stand on is one that has a good narrative because, you're with chat, you can interact.
You react to
it, you can discuss. And games like Dark Souls will do great because you're trying to piece together the story.
Yeah.
But anything with a great narrative, with a moment where you can pause and as a community take in what just happened is always great. Yeah. So we hear about this game Returnal coming out. We saw the trailer.
By Khalil, by the way.
You put that trailer together?
Yeah.
I remember watching the trailer, having no idea what kind of game, because there was no game. I don't think there's any game like Returnal in many ways. And I remember seeing it, and I'm like, tonally, there's nothing like this. And I was like, this looks like it was made as if somebody said, Nimr, what do you want in a game?
Right.
Tonally. And they made this game for me. So I got very excited, not knowing what to expect. So I avoided gameplay reveals. I avoided everything. And we went in thinking it was a horror game.
Right.
Thinking it was a Resident Evil type. We really didn't know. And I remember the first stream, when the stream ended, I created another profile on my PlayStation and started playing again.
Yeah.
So that I wouldn't ruin what I had to continue with stream.
Yeah. You could kind of take it from that spot.
Yeah, and I didn't sleep that night. I had been waiting for something like Returnal to come. Visceral, aggressive, violent, but not like violent, not in terms of like gore, violent in terms of its atmosphere.
Yeah.
It was relentless. And man, what a journey. It's the only game, we've never finished a game more than once on stream.
Right.
I have ADHD. A lot of my community has ADHD. Returnal, we finished now. We keep joking that we've never played Returnal as a tribute to the story.
Well, it's from a country that doesn't exist.
That doesn't exist. We're always like, it's crazy. This game we've never played. We finished it 6 times, but we've never played it. We finished it 6 times, including a co-stream playthrough, which we did with another streamer called EDBot, who's incredible. And the DLC. I mean, everything about the game, from the narrative, like as an entertainer.
Yeah.
I've hated the recent trend in popular cinema, like superhero movies, where they're always doing jokes. Right. I'm a comedian.
But you don't like that part of it.
No, because you don't want to betray the character in an emotional moment.
Right. Well, I mean, so Celine, there's an uphill struggle that she's going through. It's not an easy existence that she found herself in.
So imagine if you guys had like cracked a few jokes, it would have ruined.
Yeah.
It was just the dedication to, there's a reason why I say Returnal is my favorite modern game of all time.
Right.
And that's because it doesn't falter. Like at no point in time do you see a loss of focus. Like there's never a hesitation, like maybe we should, lighten it up.
A lot of it comes from the fact that we're dedicated to delivering a gameplay-centric experience.
Mm-hmm.
So the way we look at it is that, once a player is integrated, the back of the brain needs to connect with the controller, and therefore the experience is a singular experience. Mm-hmm. Now, if you want to interject that and cut into a cutscene, it takes you away from that. So we want to minimize, the interactivity part of it. And we don't want to take that away from the player in general. So we build the narrative in a way that takes into consideration just the fact that you're into it in a zone, and how do we hold on to that?
Is that why you guys chose to go first person on the cutscenes?
Well,
because it makes you jump in a different way, so you don't lose that connection. You're
it changes the pacing quite a bit. So yeah, that's again good point that player expectations are clearly subverted into something different. So you're not expecting to have a similar experience.
You don't take a break. You stay locked in as a result.
Right. Exactly. But you're also expecting something different.
Yes.
Like you're in that and you're kind of frozen for a while until you start realizing that maybe there aren't that many jump scares. Referencing some, the horror aspect of it actually was something that we were cognizant about when we were marketing the game. That it's not a traditional or horror game at all. It's more of a psychological thriller.
It's horrifying. It isn't a jump scare. It is horrifying. Like as you said, it's psychologically relentless. Yeah. And Celine's entire journey, she doesn't like the more you play. Obviously, I don't think this is a spoiler.
The more you fail.
The more you fail. But after the third, when she goes back to Earth, and there's that moment where you think maybe the game's over, right? You think possibly you don't know that you're about to go on the whole other journey, and they bury her in the ground. I'd never been more happy for my character to die.
Yeah.
I remember
finally
being, it's
solace.
Because I thought it's over. Like you just fought the bosses and now you're done.
Yeah.
Would have been such a letdown to the buildup because it didn't feel. And then I was like, oh, it was crazy. I even thinking about it now, I get goosebumps just remembering. I wish there was a way I could get specific amnesia and experience Returnal again for the first time. That first playthrough and just every level, every moment, not knowing to expect, even not having a boss on the 5th biome, everything just subverts expectation.
Yeah.
Enemies change, your gravity changes on the final biome, you're jumping further because you're underwater. And it was just, I mean, I could go on for hours, and I'm going to
No,
ask you.
no.
I have a lot of questions to ask you, but
Well,
I don't want to get ahead of myself. So
one of the things I did like that you kind of hooked into was the narrative, and you're a storyteller.
yes,
Getting into stand-up and these things, if you look at storytelling
Mhm.
as a form of stand-up,
Mhm.
which you've been clearly perfecting,
that's my form of
right?
stand up is a storytelling.
How do you see that? When do you see that it started becoming like a thing that was realistic? Because it hasn't always been. Stand-up has evolved.
Mhm.
Now, your generation, if you will,
Mhm.
maybe that's a more of a thing, but traditionally, storytelling is, there's a couple of examples, but
It
what kind of
depends.
influences did you have?
There's a comedian. My biggest influence is a guy called Bill Higgs,
Right.
and he has a thing that I consider the definition of stand up. It's not a very popular one, but I feel like it isn't discussed enough. Where he said, politicians and religious figures beg people to hear them talk.
Right.
They talk for free. And he said, stand up comedians are the only people that people pay money to. And he goes, but they don't pay us money to hear us talk.
Yeah.
They pay us to make them listen. And there's a huge distinction in that chasm right there between I'm a comedian, everyone's here to see me, I'm amazing, versus I'm a comedian, everyone's here to make me give them a reason to be here, which means you're at the service of them.
So again, the expectations might be one thing, but then the surprise is why they keep coming back.
That's it. Not only the surprise, that's 100% exactly what it is. You're not supposed to give them what they, because in its essence, somebody watches a clip right now today. What's different from back in the day is you would hear that George Carlin is an amazing comic, so you go watch him live.
Yeah.
Or you'd see him do 10 minutes on The Tonight Show. Today, people are going online and seeing clips of a comedian. And they're saying, this guy's hilarious. This is the funniest bit I've ever seen. I'm going to go pay money to see him do something totally different. It's not like music. Like if you like a band, you go watch them live. They're doing the same song. So what they're doing is they're into the way, they're into your perspective. And they now want to see you do something that is relevant to them, that helps them with your perspective solve through some issues they might be having.
In a way, the audience may be a fan of a perspective.
Yes.
But then
not a bit.
Right. But then that perspective still has things that are surprising, or, that's your sort of platform then.
That is. I mean, as human beings, that's our value. I've always said our value is our perspective.
Yeah.
And in storytelling, when you're doing storytelling stand-up, there are two types of storytellers. There are entertainer storytellers. There are meaningful entertainer storytellers. And meaningful entertainer storytellers are people that give you a reason to be there.
Yeah.
So when you go and you watch their special, they're dealing with heavy topics. In my stand-up, I'll deal with, war. And I have one of my funniest bits ever that people say is the funniest bit you have, starts off talking about ISIS did a terrorist attack, killed 60 people, and the joke begins. It's a horrifying beginning, but the comedy is the redemption. And at no point does it make it silly.
Yeah.
And I feel like tone, to be able to do that stand-up, which is my favorite type of stand-up, you can't betray tone.
No.
So when a game comes out like Returnal, the reason that I appreciate it as a stand-up comic is whether you're telling a joke or you're being serious, it's what you're doing is you're dedicating yourself to an objective or a tone. Returnal set out from the beginning. As soon as Celine crash lands on Atropos and she's out of her ship, the expectation is you're about to go on something that is insane. And at no point in time, because she doesn't know what's going on, you, the player, don't know what's going on. Everything is a surprise. The mechanics, nothing's laid out to you. There isn't a screen that says, there isn't a tutorial section that tells you, double jump, fly here. You don't know that you're going to get a grappling hook.
That's right.
You don't know that you're going to. So there's no betrayal of that the entire time, which is why I consider it the greatest modern game of all time. I consider it to be like, so Dark Souls walked so Returnal could run in the terms of narrative delivery. But Returnal just made a science fiction masterpiece. I sometimes say I wish there was a movie, but then I watch movies today and I'm like, I don't want them to ruin it.
It can. Well, that is a thing that we struggle with, the idea of even for the fan materials that we want to create. Well, here's the bar. How are we going to create stuff that's up to that? It's a difficult job for the rest of us as well. But I like the fact that we did get a parallel from the way you look at your craft.
Yeah.
And the way this particular game had an impact on you.
Huge impact.
Now, let's say there are fans of Returnal in our back catalog that maybe come in for different things. but it's good that the narrative, which was fairly new for us, had an impact, and we were allowed to do that because we had let's say, a good understanding of the scope. So because we've never done a game of this scope before, then having that in mind, we do need to understand that we have a singular protagonist, not much interaction with other NPCs or anything like that. And then, of course, the house sequences and all these things. It is a fairly indie approach to making a quote-unquote AAA game.
I've always felt that if you have the most beautiful setting, most beautiful graphics, most beautiful movement, but you don't have the story to actually give a shit about the person, right? Take Apex Legends, which is a battle royale, but it's a movement-based battle royale. I know some of the devs in Apex are the biggest fans of Returnal.
Right.
What Apex does is it's movement-based, but they're always releasing trailers with story development of their character, even in a battle royale, because they understand that to raise the stakes, you got to feel like you're fighting a battle. And I know a lot of people fought a lot of their own internal battles through Celine.
Well, that's the funny thing about it, is that when you go online and you read the stories, it's a lot of people voicing their struggle. And what I can say to that is, now you know what Celine feels like. So that is the point, that you're supposed to go through Celine's story.
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
That's the magic of it. That's the best part of it. The best part of it was that it wasn't easy.
This to me is again, I'm drawing parallels here because this is it's a sort of a heartfelt story. Like you said, staying at the essence of it means that we're not joking about it too much. No. But again, it sort of reveals itself in a personal way because it is such a personal story.
It is.
And it has different impacts on different types of people, but it's on a human level, it should have some impact. And I think that's what your comedy does in a way, that you're able to take topics that are, like in this game, there's some topics that maybe aren't friendly for video games, right?
Incredibly difficult to deal with.
Without going too much into details, this is, I think, something that, like you said, you're not joking about those things, but then you're using that as a vehicle to tell a story that has resonance to a lot of human things. In the end, it's with a distinction between heartfelt and humorous can be very minuscule, right? Because in the end, you're elated by the fact that there was a bright side, silver lining, all these things. And I think Housemarque, a lot of the Finnish storytelling culture, of course, Celine is a Greek American, so we do dabble in different cultures as well. But I think the essence of it is that
Greek mythology is
right. But after everything you go through, if you're a really good storyteller, you get a reaction that even the audience is putting together, like, it wasn't supposed to end up like this.
No.
And that's, I think, maybe a success of...
It is. In stand-up, so I'll be talking about very heavy subjects because I come from a very difficult background. Growing up in the Middle East and in the US, I dealt with racism. I dealt with war. I dealt with all of that. I've always found that laughing is the biggest indication that your spirit's still intact, right? And you always want to make sure that no matter how difficult the subject matter you're dealing with, it's not about finding the funny in it.
No.
It's about laughing to overcome the trauma of it.
Yeah, and the circumstances.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest things that connected me to Returnal is that you keep dying until you start really facing the trauma as Celine. Every time Celine thinks she's got a grasp on the story, she's wrenched right back in because you're not there yet. You still have things to deal with. She becomes more powerful as a character the more she comes face to face with the truths of what have happened. We were not discussing this, I mean, at the moment, but
no, but we can,
like with the sun fragments and everything. And once you start to get deeper, which is, I know comedy is ha-ha, right? And there are no ha-ha moments in Returnal, but it's not, the act of laughing is just a physical indication of a human being reacting to something that is very visceral and deep.
The thing is,
Returnal does that without the laughs, but it inspired me.
Overcoming obstacles is very human.
Yeah.
And then once you start overcoming stuff and you're picking up in a way that your skill is something that you're getting more grounded with. Yeah. That point, you're laughing at the fact that you're starting to make it.
Yes.
You know, it's a confidence of like, hey, I've been here.
I've been here, and there are other people that when you're laughing with other people, there's a community of people who've been here.
Exactly.
And the same thing happens with Returnal when you're going on a Reddit forum and trying to break down a story. You're connecting, and you're like, oh, people have been through this, whether you're dealing with themes of child abuse, abortion, whatever it may be, however people take the story. And you got to respect the character, the protagonist, and the antagonist. And when you start making out of tone gestures, whether it's a joke or then you're disrespecting the subject material. Yeah. You never did that. Housemarque at no point. Well, that you took a very the reason that you took difficult material and didn't fall flat on its face was it was shown respect throughout.
We never had the need to please too wide of an audience.
Yes.
And I think that's where you start getting into the territory of not necessarily compromising with your vision, but having maybe too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yes. No, it was, again, I've always said that it'll be 5 years from now that the world will understand what Returnal was. I feel like it's a game that needs time. I don't know if you were, I'm sure you more than me were familiar with when Demon Souls first hit the scene and how misunderstood it was. Returnal is the next Demon Souls in terms of like the timeline of gaming. I sometimes will watch people playing. I'm looking at them. I'm like, you don't get it. You're not getting it yet. They're like, this game, what is this bullshit? I don't understand. I'm dying. It's too difficult. They don't get it. Can I ask you stuff about the story
of Returnal? Next Machina, I can nice.
Next Machina, you can tell me everything.
Yeah. So I think absolutely you can ask me questions.
Feel free not to answer.
If I don't answer, I'll just ask about your comedy then. You know, turn it back, enough. Flip it back to you.
Fair enough. Can I tell you what I took away from the story, and you tell me if what you can confirm and just tell me from it what you can confirm.
So it's a good way of going at it, but likely I just won't confirm anything.
Okay, fair enough.
Because
fair enough. But maybe there's something in there that you can't confirm. Like, yes, she is actually a woman.
I can comment on.
You can comment on a couple things.
Okay. Things, yeah.
So obviously we know Celine's dealing with a lot. What I see a lot of people discussing online, this is my own personal take, is that there is, so we know that Thea, Celine's mom, based on what we see in the room and the letters and all of that she got paralyzed after a car accident with what seems to be presented as a car accident, Celine in the back, and Celine survives the car crash, but her mother is paralyzed and can't become a space-faring woman. And I believe that there is, so I'm going to give you what I've perceived from all of this.
Yeah.
Celine grows up in a pretty abusive household from her mother, taking probably her guilt out on her. And then Celine grows up, and to kind of fulfill her mother lives vicariously through her to become an astronaut. There was always a couple of things that stood out to me. At one point, we read a log where Celine seems to be talking to a doctor and saying, like, you can't tell anyone about this. My theory is that it's a pregnancy, and that Celine is pregnant. And if the pregnancy is known, then she won't be able to be an astronaut. I don't believe that Celine had Helios, her son. I believe that Celine aborted Helios, because throughout the gameplay, we take silphium vials, which is a contraceptive in Greek mythology. And I'm trying to read your face to see what I can take from this. Yeah. Also, there's a lot of statues throughout your gameplay of the aliens who have their hands kind of up and their bellies are missing. We also see several objects like the warped rubber ball, the charred key, the burned, there's several burned objects. And we do see Celine's mother disfigured. In the DLC, I believe it was even more elaborated on that Celine's mother is disfigured. I believe that Celine burned her mother alive in the house, locked her in the basement, burned the house down. And that's why we get the charred key on the piano. That's why we get all of that. Her father, who is alluded to be one of the boss battles playing the piano, might have also ran out on them because of the mother for whatever reason. But I'm always turning around that kind of aspect where the guilt that Celine has is a lot more than she left her son to die to be an astronaut by letting him drown and going. I believe that's a metaphor. And Celine aborted Helios. In Greek mythology, Thea is the mother of both Celine and Helios. So in a way, the abortion of Helios was because of Thea's abuse towards Celine. So it was as if she she was the mother of Selene and Helios, because Helios was aborted based on that kind of abuse. So I've always wondered, and I think the question that I've always wanted to ask is, did Selene get an abortion, or did she actually have Helios?
So the gist of the question is that, is Helios real?
And is Helios, did he ever exist, or is he
right?
Yeah.
So without,
or is the Helios we see in the game her
imagination
projecting her
right.
son that would have been had she not aborted?
Well, so I think there's like
which
you
would
mentioned,
explain the astronaut figure. Sorry to interrupt you again,
No.
but there's that astronaut figure that's always looming that we see. Like if you're running through the game, you'll see him randomly sometimes.
Which is scary as shit.
Which is the first time I saw him, I was jumping out of my chair. And obviously in the cutscenes, he's very prevalent, but no face. And it's kind of like, and he causes the accident.
He or she, sorry, true.
Yeah. They cause the accident 100%, because I feel like the astronaut is just Selene's, that astronaut caused me to abort this child, because to be able to be that.
But so if you take that layer of the storytelling, because you can project either onto Helios or the astronaut a past or a future from Selene's perspective, right? So the past can have the bigger impact, or the future can have the bigger impact, but it is left untold.
It is not confirmed,
right? Yeah. And on face value, the trauma with Helios is a powerful enough of a story to kind of
either way
to bookend that side of the experience.
But there are so many clues, like between the Sylphium vial, between when she shoots down Helios. She's literally shooting down Helios as they crash land to the planet.
Right.
That's like you're shooting, like you're killing, as opposed to like abandoning. When you walk away from Helios, you're abandoning Helios to walk to your journey in space, which is also another. There's so many metaphors.
But that's the other half of it, right? So Selene in space on this dark planet of Atropos is the other side of the story.
Yes.
That we get to then have multiple interpretations.
Which is, again, the other question that I have, where there's two theories, which is Atropos real, or is it a fragment of our imagination?
Right. So that's an easy sort of a question, because most of the online conversations start with that.
Yeah.
And then from there, they start to derivate the, like, oh, and what were the details? And, you know, you're picking up on a lot of the stuff that maybe isn't even at the front of the online conversation.
No, it isn't.
Right. But a lot of the things you got, maybe you went and Googled and you looked at the conversation, and then you're like, well, that doesn't sound right. There were a lot of things online that illuminated me in certain ways. And then I attribute my community and the fact that we were playing together, and I remember after we finished the true ending, when we got the sun fragments and we analyzed it, and we had unlocked enough of the conversation, you know, the translation. We did like it's not like we did a specific stream. It ended. We stayed on streaming for 3 hours discussing the story. Yeah. The warped rubber ball, the charred keys. I can't take credit for that. We had another streamer that I know that was in the chat. Her name was Pascal Cat. She's incredible. She was like, I think that she burned her mother alive in the basement. Yeah. Because of the charred key, the warp. And that is, yes, 100% details. Yeah. But it starts to add layers. Because what we've always been most conflicted about is if this alien race that was on its way to ascension somehow, through a rift in the space-time continuum, through some kind of alien process we don't understand, her insane amount of guilt caused them to somehow intertwine with that and be held captive, whether it's Hades, because you're talking about a lot of Greek mythology, who created her own personal hell by using this existing or creating this race, and then getting them trapped up in her hell. So they are suffering as a result of her, which is why they want her to work through her grief so they can ascend and split off. Or is it a figment of her own imagination? My personal take on the story is that that alien race exists, and for whatever reason, she has stopped them from their natural evolution or ascension. Yeah, through her grief. Yeah. And her grief to be that crazy, between, if you come and you say burned her mother alive, aborted a baby, hid that, and then ends up crash landing, and then there's the time loop can enter into a modern interpretation of Hades or purgatory. Yeah, well, see, again, a lot of these interpretations are linear in terms of the clues that are given. Yes. And therefore that the structure and the pacing of it will steer you a little bit into like, well, this must be it, and then later on you're like, oh, that must be it.
You keep
so that is the way that it's meant to take place. But again, the fact that there's multiple interpretations of it, we do understand that there's a balance of the right amount of this and that to leave it a bit ambiguous.
Yes,
and
which I think is very important.
Well, that's the essence.
Because it allows people to kind of fill in the blanks with what's important to them.
Right. And the storytelling, what you're saying, online conversations and with other players, that is something that was, we wanted that to happen.
It would have never happened if it was linear. If it was explained to us.
Right.
These theories spark conversations about, believe it or not, abortion, about child abuse, about stuff, which made the game. I'm telling you, this game's great. You guys... I just, if you want, I'll do it for free. I'll call my next tour Returnal, and I'll go on a global tour to speak your accolades. But what can you confirm, if anything?
So let me put it this way. When I knew about the complexities that we were going to undertake before we started full-scale development, I told the game director, Harry Kruger, that please don't tell me the reality. Because I feel like
did he want to?
Well,
or was he already like?
Let's say that he had a idea of how to present a lot of these things.
Okay.
And the way he was teasing into the complexity, I began to understand that it's not my job to know, but it's my job to interpret. And as a marketing brand type of person, that is usually the thing we don't do. Because we have to have a list of the facts,
obviously,
so we can present them.
Yeah.
But at this time, I felt like I was more prepared going into talking about this experience when I don't know. So officially, even then and now, I don't know.
Really?
I don't know.
Okay.
And
are you saying you don't know, but you know, and you're
well, no,
or no, you don't.
Let's say
genuinely
that.
Don't
let's
know.
say that I have insights because I'm a part of the dev team.
Obviously.
But also, I've learned a lot of stuff from the community. Okay. So a lot of the stuff you brought, so the things you said here, there was maybe a piece of information there that I didn't know about.
Oh.
So again, that's what I'm saying is.
Which doesn't mean it's true or not. It just means like that's something you didn't realize before.
Right. And that's my personal perspective
Got you.
of what this game has the opportunity to do. So if I start confirming things here and now, I would be going against the vision of the game.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
As much as it breaks my heart.
I know.
As much as it breaks my heart, like I'm actually happy that you stick to your guns. Do you genuinely not know? Because if you don't, then I'd like to ask you as a fan.
Yeah.
What do you think? Like, how did you interpret the game? What do you think the story is? I think is the best way to put it.
So for me, it is about those multiple interpretations. Because as an individual, we're always second guessing ourselves. And I think it's about second guessing. It's about what ifs. Because an individual will have struggles. And then it's like, well, that could have been an easier route. What if I didn't go to med school? What if I didn't do this? And that is a human property. And then Celine is more or less a extreme version of that.
Quite extreme.
If you will.
Yeah.
So I think we start to find ourselves in the beginning just it's a story of triumph and overcoming the odds. And, I could go into different interpretations of the planet and everything. But to me, all of these are just a stage. For me, it's a way of understanding somebody else's predicaments, but then I reflect to my own life. And, the things that I take away from it is every cycle, you learn something more.
That's true.
Every small death has, there's a phoenix rising from the ashes. And I think that is, personally, like the philosophy that I would like to give. It's kind of like, you're rolling the stone up the hill, and the next morning you got to roll that stone up again. It's a Sisyphean kind of endless struggle. And I think, that in itself is personal. It's very human. But again, it goes into different types of family relationships, which may or may not strike a chord on a personal level for others, that then could take them to these lengths. For example, with the abortion variation, I never actually saw that deep into it.
Okay.
Because to me, the Helios story itself I have a son who's 2.5 now,
Okay.
and Harry had his 2 sons a bit earlier. Actually, right when we were wrapping up Next Machina, he had his first son.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And we have this story of friendship and building a family alongside and understanding the struggles that goes into that. Then from a male dad perspective, right? And then seeing this kind of a mother perspective, it almost feels to me like, oh, that's even taboo for me to even theory bash it.
Gotcha.
Right. So you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, it's not a perspective we would
it's
understand.
kind of like you see a sacred thing,
Yeah.
and you're kind of like, well, it's enough for me to even see it from afar.
Mhm.
Again, but it's I think in that way it is personal. It is it's a personal understanding of what you want to find out of it, and I think if we can have that multiple interpretations, then we're tapping into something that is unique to this art form. Books, movies
Very unique to
have that to some certain extent, but like you said before, the interactivity, it gives there's some aspect that strikes a different chord.
It's the puzzle solving builds community.
Yeah.
You're putting the story
yeah.
together by going either if it's online or in a chat, or the alien sphere.
Yeah.
That's in the middle of usually the first biome when you run up, and it's just so haunting. And if you shoot it, the sounds that it makes and everything, like the whole thing, is that supposed to represent anything? That's a direct question, or is that something you can't answer?
Again, even if it doesn't, it still does, right?
No, 100%. I guess the question that I'm asking is, was it meant to represent something specific, or is it just meant to represent something alien?
I think it's a factor of exactly the more broad sense of things, because it's more of a, hey, first thing you see, what is it? That's the thing. That
you shoot it first. You try to interact with it. Yeah.
But that also gives you, instead of a movie, you couldn't shoot it. Like in a movie, you wouldn't
100%.
have been able to interact with
No.
it. So this is the first time you interact and wonder.
True.
That's it.
That's it. Perfect. Okay, that's a great answer. Okay, thank you for sharing your perspective. That means a lot.
Because for me, that I remember when that came into being, and I understood that. Well, that's when I started asking questions, and then a couple of weeks later, I knew to shut up.
Whenever I play Dark Souls, I always go for the Berserk build, as I like to call it. I'll get the big great sword from Berserk. I want to ask you about that as well. If Berserk had influence on, Berserk is like my favorite piece of fiction anime out there.
I think Berserk has had a lot of influence on a lot of the coolest things that I know. So,
do you feel like Returnal has taken any influence from that in terms of tone, atmosphere?
If you look at the Japanese manga and anime, I can say that there's a handful of influences. Harry Kruger, who actually was the game director, used to live in Japan. He used to work for Q Games back in the day.
Really?
So he moved to Finland from Japan as a developer, and he found Housemarque.
So do you have any idea if the Behelit from Berserk has any influence on?
So there's a few influence. So Berserk, Blame, and Junji Ito are, I would say, the main influences. And when it goes to, let's say, Blame, it's a lot of the visual, massive sort of stone structure stuff. With Berserk, it goes a lot into philosophy and some of the existential, even cosmic horror type themes.
Cosmic horrors,
right?
Definitely, yeah.
And then Junji Ito is more about the fact that you have this sort of internal panic of like, this is just not comfortable type of situations. So I think a lot of these tones then find their way. But I mean, in that sense, we could talk about, this is the Twin Peaks room, because we have the red curtain here, and this is the Twin Peaks floor print in the back here.
All right.
So Twin Peaks and, Lovecraft, and there's so many things that you draw inspiration from.
For sure. And Geiger, I'm sure, as well.
Yeah, and Geiger as well. But I mean, Geiger is
I think influences all of it.
Again, like if you've made a scary sci-fi game or movie, there's a lot of these influences. So some of those things are not the things we'd mention first.
Yeah.
Like in the interviews, we might not say Geiger, but we might mention Beksinski, which was a similar dark artist, but it was more about, let's say, environmental kind of dread of just looming
I
over.
can see it. I've all of since his work, so it's,
Right.
I'm sure like you can see it in that for sure.
Yeah, and there's so many influences, but then it's exactly like what are the things that we're picking.
Mhm.
It is kind of cherry picking when
It
you're
is.
making a game like this.
Yeah,
Like,
I can
well, I
imagine.
like that, I like this. But so I would say that essentially we want to create something of our own,
Mhm.
but within the limitations of the framework. And then people also ask, like, is it Finnish? Well, and I usually say, well, it is in terms of like it's dark half of the year here, and we're really melancholic. So if you get depressed when you're playing the game, that's the Finnish
element.
that's the Finnish cultural part. But in essence, it is more of a Greek, because a
definitely
lot of that stuff is in. Harry is a Greek native, so I think he, takes a lot of that influence. And what's beautiful about it is that a lot of these personal, let's say, challenges do come from that some sort of experience as well. And I think if we weren't honest about these stories, we couldn't even have the ambition to this level. So again, there's a lot of reality there, but then you try to find the good balance of the artistic sort of thing you put out.
Yeah.
But yeah, lots of influences. I think Berserk is a good one, but it's hard to name one above the other.
I can imagine. So is it true that there's no sequel that you guys are planning? Can you speak about that?
Historically, we haven't done sequels.
That's true.
And except Stardust has gone through a lot of different variations, but historically we haven't done sequels. So
no, to be honest, let me rephrase.
Yes.
Please give us another experience like that.
There you go.
That I think would be what I would want. I would be so happy with this being a done. Like if that's the story of Celine, and that's what we get, that is amazing. It wasn't like a cliffhanger or something, but if there's a sequel, I'd be overjoyed. If there isn't a sequel, I'm going to be overjoyed.
Regardless,
but please don't make a game that is a commercial, easy, hand-holding experience where it's just like a hack and slash. Don't go harder. If anything, whatever it is,
you have our word that
stay true.
We will try to push the barrier. We're only as good as our latest title. We want to improve on these things, and you can only be proud of the work that keeps upping the game.
I have no doubt you guys are going to kick ass no matter what you do. It's just I always wondered if you guys had any public like something that clarifies that. Dude, thank you guys for the. I don't know what to say. It's my favorite thing. I'm so happy that the game exists.
Yeah, and
if you ever do more with it, please do. Like, there's an army of people out there that would die for like more.
From my perspective,
it's pretty fleshed out.
Celine is a fairly complete whole of a story.
No DLC ever again.
Well, just the one we have.
Besides no new any more DLC.
And nothing to announce at this point, at least.
Bummer.
I know. It's like you get a chance to talk to a super fan and they just want more. You're like, well,
No, I respect it because at the end of the day, I understand. Like, you guys made something that's so perfect, and you want to make sure that stays intact.
Like, in the world of reboots and remakes, there's a fine art in understanding finite.
Yeah. Oh, and you guys killed it with the PC release.
That was
outstanding.
Our partners. So we didn't do that in house.
You didn't do that in house. That's true.
Sony.
They did incredible.
And
incredible. That is how I play the game now.
Yeah.
Because I got a beast of a machine, so I get to enjoy it. And with the new capture cards, I'm gonna replay it now because I can do 120 FPS. I had to play it on 60 on PC because we were doing the
capture at the same time.
Because I play with HDR, so you can't do a dual output. So I did 60. So now we have the new 2.1 card. So I'm going to do a whole new playthrough at 120. I'm very pumped.
I think that we've covered a lot of good stuff here.
Yeah. Thank you for being so forthcoming and sharing so much with me.
Of course.
This was a big moment for me as a fan.
I hope I didn't spoil anything for you.
Absolutely nothing. No, you literally gave me nothing. But but just it's so nice to talk with someone who's in the actual know of the game. And I hope that I was able to convey to you how much we love what you guys have done. And I think I speak on behalf of millions of people out there who are just like I have friends. We start talking about Returnal and then it's 2 a.m. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a very special product that you've created.
I think what we can take away from this is that we're on the right path. We're doing the.
You really are.
Because a lot of the time, developers, what we have is access to the internet, and the internet's not always good or kind, or there isn't a singular opinion that you'll take away once you start looking for feedback for any art you put out there.
100%.
So having feedback like this is really the best way. It helps us a lot because these are the things that we're pondering on. Like, are we doing it right? Is this having an impact? Is this doing it? Is it having intended feedback? Are they asking the questions?
For what it's worth, from a guy whose entire career has been on storytelling, I don't have an example better than Returnal that I can give.
Well, that is very strong praise.
To be like, it is everything I've ever wanted in a video game. You guys took it, even from the rain coming out of the controller, from every little aspect, the immersion and the attention to detail is like a wet dream for anybody who's into storytelling and nuance. It's perfect.
And it's a big team, we're growing. And what I'd like to take to everybody on that team is this message.
Please share with them my unbridled enthusiasm. I really hope are they looking at me, to the team there?
Yeah.
Please keep doing what you're doing. Be as courageous as you were with Returnal. I think what's missing from the world, not gaming, is courage. And to be able to tell a story and not fear what people might think, but be more concerned with being true to the story, will elevate us all as human beings. And we need that today. There's so much conflict. There's so much doubt that when you put a product forward, just being insanely dedicated to it and relentless about it is what makes it stand out. Hesitation is defeat. That's what we learned from Sekiro. And I think there's zero hesitation in Returnal. And I don't know about any games that stick to their guns than a few. You can count them on one hand. And I think Returnal is always going to be in the pantheons of greatness. I can't wait for the world en masse to understand what Returnal is. I think right now, 30%, I think you haven't even reached potential. And on behalf of my community, at least on Twitch, I can say this for sure. It's our favorite modern game of all time. So please keep it coming. We can't wait to see what you have coming up next. And anything I can do to support personally, or anybody can, let us know. We're there. We're rooting for you.
Those words were already, that was a lot for the team. And I think we'll take that. That will resonate. You should all get a raise.
All of you should be paid.
Well, now you gotta.
This is gonna get edited out. 20% of the company should be distributed to all of you immediately.
Right. No, we'll send this.
We love you. Is what we're trying to say. I love you. I love you. I love everybody here. We love you. We love what you've done. And if this is an example of what being Finnish is, God damn, I'm moving.
It's a multinational company.
Multinational. I don't know. In Finland, maybe the cold is what we need. Stay indoors and work on stuff.
A good anecdote to leave off on, I think, is the fact that a lot of the people, that Finnish mentality of huddling up in the wintertime and sort of perfecting your craft, that was because of the elements. Like, literally, we could not have the social life that a lot of the Southern Europeans, for example, had. We're stuck. Most of the winter, we're just solo. A lot of the Finnish game development scene does come from this fact that that's all we have. Like, we're stuck at winter at home.
And that's why games that come from California suck. Because we have sun and beach. Okay. Makes sense. I mean, whatever you guys got going on, man, I don't know.
It's also a different kind of struggle, yeah.
You guys are doing great. I love you. Thank you. And shout out to Finland, too, because this is my first time here, and just the nicest
let's keep it between us. Let's not tell everybody.
Finland sucks.
Yeah.
Stay away.
It's not even a real country.
Go to a good place like Siberia. That's where they got it going.
That's where all the bears are. But hey, Nemr.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Hope to have you another day.
Thanks for being so generous with your time.
Absolutely. As well, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.